Welcome back to Upscale Audio. I'm Jake.
And I'm Jordan, and today we have something extra special prepared for you all.
Yeah, we're going to dive into the world of high-end audio and bring you 3 awesome choices at under $18,000. Before we dive in, let's talk about our reference gear and reference tracks so you know how we listen to get these sounds. So Jordan, what gear do we use?
Sure, starting off with our source, we have the Render A1000, which we utilize as a streamer and a DAC. We went RCA out of this unit directly into our Prima Luna Evo 300 hybrid. The reason why we selected this as our integrated is because it has enough power to drive every single one of our speakers, yet still provide that clean and quiet performance in order to work with these high sensitivity speakers as well.
And our 2 reference tracks were on very different ends of the sonic spectrum. On the low end side, we had James Blake's Limit to Your Love, which I have been listening to since high school, and I just heard Jordan tell someone it was his new demo track. I knew it first. And we also, on the other end of the spectrum, was Chappell Ronan's Pink Pony Club, aka the soundtrack to his life. So we love these songs because James Blake gives you those deep, resonant bass waves, all the way up to Chappell Ronan's airy, expressive vocals. So it was the whole sonic soundscape for our speakers. Let's dive in. Up first, we have the Kanta No3, which does come in at $15,000 a pair. Now, this is a amazing speaker that we have both fallen in love with. So Focal has been innovating audio since 1979, and what you may not know is they started building drivers for other huge names in the audio landscape, and they realized that if they controlled every bit of creation for each driver and each part of the speaker, they could make the ultimate speaker that was exactly how they wanted. So they make every part of this speaker, every component, in-house.
Well, except for the flax. The flax is going to be grown in the French countryside by French farmers.
Yes, that is true. But Jordan, besides the flax, talk to me about what makes this speaker so special.
Sure thing. So the Kanta No3 from Focal is going to be a 3-way floor standing loudspeaker. Now, the specialty of this is going to be that it utilizes beryllium within its tweeter.
Yes, and what makes beryllium so special, and if we had beryllium, this is when I pull it out and do the famous drop of the beryllium tweeter. But what makes beryllium so special is that it is both lightweight yet super rigid, which allows you to get super detailed high frequency reproduction without any kind of degradation.
Thanks, Jake. Yeah, 100%. Now, moving on over to our mid bass and bass driver, we are going to have a 6.5-inch flax driver and a 2 8-inch flax drivers on the bottom for our bass. These guys here, the primary functionality is that flax is going to have that perfect balance of lightweight yet rigidity in order to produce those amazing mids and amazing lows that I've been enjoying.
Very accurate with no coloration whatsoever.
That's right.
But diving more into how it sounds, these are going to be for those of you who love critical listening, who wants to feel like you're inside the studio while the artist was recording. When we listened to James Blake's Limit to Your Love, the bass was deep, but it didn't muddy the mids or the highs. It didn't color it in any kind of negative way, but you felt the sub bass frequencies. When we moved on to Chappell Ronan's Pink Pony Club, the vocals were crystal clear, incredibly articulate with perfect timing, and it just felt like we were in the recording studio with Chappell Ronan herself, which she would hate because she's all about strict boundaries and space between her and her fans. But if you want critical listening that is yet still emotionally engaging, this is the speaker for you. But what if you want something a little more lively?
Then our next pick might be the correct one for you.
Up next is the Klipschorn, which is an American icon. This is a very famous speaker that I have wanted to cover for a long time, but Jordan never wanted to help me move it in. But thankfully it is 2 different pieces. So this speaker does come in at $16,500 for a pair, but boy, do you get a lot of speaker with that. It was designed by legendary American speaker icon manufacturer, designer Paul Klipsch back in 1946. And fun fact, this is the only speaker that has been in continuous production for over 75 years. Jordan, talk to me about what makes this speaker so special.
Sure, so you already kind of touched on it, Jake. Now this is going to be 2 separate parts. Starting off with our bass, this is going to utilize a 15-inch folded woofer that is horn loaded. Now the benefit of that is going to give it that signature Klipsch sound down below, just to match the same up top. We have a 2-inch and a 1-inch horn loaded compression drivers, Jake. Did I say that right?
Yep.
Perfect. So for this here, we are going to have a fully horn-loaded design that comes in at a sensitivity of 105 decibels, which makes this extremely easy to drive with. I mean, we typically use tube amps, but the reason why we picked the Prima Luna is going to be for its quiet and dynamic precision,
and
power.
quiet and clean power. Yes, but jumping into the sound, the best way to describe the sound profile of Klipsch in general and what this is famous for is lively, dynamic, energetic, like the concert-like experience. So when we put on James Blake's Limit to Your Love, it didn't just reproduce the bass, it unleashed it. And I've actually listened to James Blake perform Limit to Your Love live at the Hollywood Bowl, one of the best concerts of my life, and I can attest that this is literally, it felt like I was hearing it, and it was awesome at the concert. Moving on to Chappell Ronan, her vocals were energetic. There was awesome highs without it being fatiguing. I felt like I could have listened to this for a really long time, but eventually they made me go back to work. But yes, this is awesome, earth-shaking sub bass with energetic and expressive emotional highs. It is just the perfect package. But what if they want something with perfect craftsmanship and innovative technology?
If that's the case, then you're going to want to check out our next pick.
Last and certainly not least is the Fyne Audio F1-8S, which does come in at $17,999 for a pair, which means we just inched under our budget of $18K for a pair of speakers. Now, Fyne Audio, they are going to be a younger company, but they are comprised of industry veterans who have decades of speaker innovation among them, including its designer, Dr. Paul Mills, who is just world famous, a legend, an icon. And I got to buy him a beer at Exponent, which is one of the coolest moments in my entire career in hi-fi. So this is the flagship line, which means they got to throw every bit of technology and innovation they could into a speaker. There was no accountant saying, you can't do this. So this has everything and the kitchen sink thrown into it, and they even cryoed the kitchen sink. Jordan, talk to me about the drivers and the tech and what makes this so revolutionary.
Sure, Jake. So you already hit a key on it. So this speaker is going to use cryo within its internal crossover and wiring, which is a very unique aspect for Fyne. And what's really cool is that Dr. Paul Mills really wanted to start cryoing some of the products, so they gave him one to put in the factory.
Right? Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, looking at the driver, this is going to utilize a concentric bass driver. So we have the 8-inch ISO flare, which is going to sit a 25mm magnesium tweeter within the throat or the heart of the speaker itself. Now, this is going to give us a full point source speaker, which, Jake, why is that important?
It's important to look at how music is recorded. So when you think about a musician, both in the recording studio or at a concert, there's a microphone, which is what they perform into, and that is a single point source, which means every bit of sound goes in one point source. So the philosophy behind concentric speakers or point source speakers is if you record into a single point source, the best way to reproduce that recording is also from a single point source. So it helps with things like time alignment and uniformity. It helps with off-access listening, and it's just an amazing sound that you just have to hear to believe.
I mean, you've really hit it. It's a phenomenal speaker that also does have a downfiring port onto their patent-pending bass track system. That's why you'll see at the very bottom of our speaker, we do have a little space, and that is intended for the port itself. This is a phenomenal speaker that I absolutely find gorgeous, but besides it being gorgeous, Jake, it sounded even better.
Yes, it did. So we should talk first about the tracks that we listened to, which was Limit to Your Love, and that song is all about bass, and this had no trouble hitting just spooky levels of bass that filled the room. These were super easy to place. That's one of the benefits of the bass tracks is it makes it easier and more forgiving to place the speaker. But we got amazing sub-bass frequencies that filled the room, but it didn't muddy or color anything else in the sound. Then when we move on to the vocals of Pink Pony Club. Now I have always felt like one of the things that concentric speakers shine the most on is female vocals. So I love that we gave it a Chappell Ronan track, and oh my gosh, her voice was haunting. It was airy and expressive. It filled the room with three-dimensional sound, and it was just an amazing experience because even though this is a luxury speaker full of amazing innovative craftsmanship, the thing I can't stress enough, the best things that these do is gave me the emotional response that I wanted. So these weren't just critical listening or the live concert experience. This was the most emotional I got listening to the music, which even when you work in hi-fi, it's cool when you still have a speaker that makes you feel emotional about the music. But Jordan, let's go into a summary of the three speakers and see what's best for you. So we looked at three incredible speakers today, and you might be wondering, what is the best? The honest truth is there is no single best speaker. It's the best speaker for you, and that's why you definitely want to call in and talk to our commission-free salespeople because they will ask you questions about your room, about all the different questions that they can ask you to find the right speaker for you. So to recap, the Focal is going to be the most detailed and articulate and accurate speaker for those who want critical listening or like you're in the recording studio while they were recording. The Klipsch at its 105 dB efficiency is going to be the most lively and energetic. That's the much more of a live in your concert living room experience where it feels like you're at the concert as opposed to the recording studio. And then lastly, the Fyne. The Fyne is amazing craftsmanship, innovative technology, and the most emotionally engaging. So if you want to have that kind of experience where you're blown away by cutting edge technology, but something that also emotionally grips you and maybe brings a tear to your eye, that's going to be the Fyne.
Most definitely. Now, as far as aesthetics wise, the Focals are going to provide you with the most amount of variety and options just because there are different front panels as well as side panels. And you can take a look at our website if you want to check those out even more. For Klipsch, they are an iconic, bold statement that if you do spring above our budget and look at the 75th anniversary, make an even bolder statement with that in your room. And finally, the I almost said Focal. The Fyne F1-8S comes in an absolutely gorgeous lacquer burr walnut that is more of a piece of art than it is speaker.
That is true. And looking at room placement and efficiency now. So you look at the Focal and the Fyne are going to be a little easier to place, especially with that bass tracks on the Fyne speaker. And then you look at the Klipschorn and you're going to have to make a little more compromises with your wife to get them to fit into the living room or into your listening room. They do want to be closer to the corners. So that is something to keep in mind. And lastly, efficiency. So the Fyne and the Focal are both going to be 91 dB efficient, which is still relatively efficient, but you do want to have some strong power to make this speaker sing as best as possible, while the Klipsch is going to be 105 dB, which means you barely need a few watts to blow you out of the room. So that is also why you want to talk to our salespeople, because we're going to match the speaker to the gear to every piece of your system, and also maybe make some suggestions that you can upgrade. So definitely call our commission-free salespeople, and we want to remind you to like, comment, and subscribe. Comment down below what speaker of these three you would choose if you could have them, and you might even win a t-shirt. They don't even give us free t-shirts anymore.
I know. What's going on with that?
And remember, at Upscale, we'll treat your system
like it's ours.